The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace courtyard as Marcus Chen adjusted his ceremonial uniform for what he thought would be another routine day. At 28, he had served as a royal guard for 5 years, and the job had become predictable. Stand at attention, escort dignitaries, and maintain the perfect image of royal security. Nobody expected much from the quiet guard who kept to himself and rarely spoke unless spoken to. The annual Royal Heritage Festival was in full swing, bringing thousands of visitors to the palace grounds. Marcus had been assigned to the main entrance, where tourists gathered to take photos and catch glimpses of the royal family. It was considered an easy posting, usually given to guards who needed a break from more demanding duties. "Another day of playing statue," muttered his colleague James, adjusting his own uniform nearby. "At least the weather's nice." Marcus nodded politely but said nothing. He had learned long ago that speaking up rarely led to anything good. Most of the other guards saw him as unremarkable, and he preferred it that way. What they didn't know was that Marcus had spent his childhood in Hong Kong, training in traditional martial arts under his grandfather's strict guidance. His family had immigrated when he was 15, and he had quietly continued his training ever since. The festival crowd was larger than usual. Marcus noticed several groups that seemed out of place. 3 men in dark clothing lingered near the main gate, their eyes scanning the area rather than enjoying the festivities. Their movements were too calculated, too purposeful for regular tourists. Marcus had developed an instinct for spotting trouble during his years of service, but reporting suspicions without solid evidence was discouraged. As the morning progressed, more concerning individuals appeared in the crowd. Marcus counted at least 8 people who didn't belong, all positioned at strategic points around the courtyard. They communicated through subtle hand signals and maintained visual contact with each other. The pattern was unmistakable to someone trained to notice such things. "James," Marcus said quietly, "have you noticed anything unusual about some of these visitors?" James glanced around casually. "Looks like a normal crowd to me. Maybe you've been standing in the sun too long." Marcus decided not to pursue the matter. He had learned that his observations were often dismissed as overthinking or paranoia. Instead, he began mentally mapping the positions of the suspicious individuals and planning potential response routes. His grandfather had taught him that preparation was everything. Even when others couldn't see the danger approaching, the royal family was scheduled to make a public appearance at noon, which was still 2 hours away. Marcus calculated that if these individuals were planning something, they would likely make their move when the maximum number of people were gathered and the targets were most exposed. The thought sent a chill down his spine as he continued his watch. Marcus noticed one of the suspicious men speaking into what appeared to be a concealed communication device. The man's lips barely moved, and he kept his hand near his mouth as if coughing. It was a technique Marcus recognized from security training. Though he had never seen it used in an actual threatening situation, the festival music and laughter of children created a surreal backdrop to Marcus's growing concern. Families were enjoying carnival games, vendors were selling traditional foods, and photographers were capturing memories of a perfect day. None of them had any idea that something dangerous might be brewing. Just meters away, Marcus tried to catch the attention of the senior guard coordinator, Captain Williams. But the older man was busy managing the crowd control barriers and didn't respond to Marcus's subtle signals. The hierarchy in the royal guard was strict, and interrupting a superior without clear evidence of immediate danger could result in disciplinary action. The suspicious individuals began moving closer to the main platform where the royal family would soon appear. Their formation was becoming more obvious to Marcus, who recognized it as a classic encirclement pattern. Each person had a specific role and position, suggesting extensive planning and coordination. This wasn't a random threat or opportunistic crime. As 11 o'clock approached, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He quietly radioed for a bathroom break and began moving through the crowd, using his knowledge of the palace grounds to track the suspicious individuals without being noticed. What he discovered in the next few minutes would prove that sometimes the most unremarkable person in the room sees exactly what everyone else misses. The pieces of a dangerous puzzle were falling into place, and Marcus Chen was the only one who could see the complete picture. His years of patient observation and quiet preparation were about to be put to the ultimate test. though he had no idea just how dramatically this day would reshape his entire life and the safety of everyone around him. Marcus moved through the festival crowd like a shadow, using techniques his grandfather had taught him about blending into surroundings. The art of invisible movement wasn't just about stealth, it was about understanding how people behaved and becoming part of that natural flow. Festival goers were focused on entertainment, food, and taking photos, which made it easier for Marcus to observe without drawing attention. His first target was a tall man in a brown jacket who had positioned himself near the souvenir stands. As Marcus pretended to examine a display of royal commemorative pins, he overheard fragments of a conversation conducted in what sounded like multiple languages. The man spoke briefly in English about timing, then switched to what Marcus recognized as Russian, though he couldn't understand the specific words. 20 minutes, the man said clearly in English before ending his call. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. 20 minutes would put the timing exactly at noon, when the royal family was scheduled to appear. Moving to his next observation point, Marcus spotted a woman in tourist clothing who was anything but a tourist. Her shoes were wrong for someone planning to walk around a festival all day. She carried a bag that seemed too heavy for souvenirs. More importantly, she kept checking the time and scanning the crowd in a pattern that suggested professional training. Marcus needed to get closer to understand what was happening, but he also needed to maintain his cover. He purchased a festival program and a small flag, instantly becoming just another enthusiastic visitor. The simple props worked perfectly, allowing him to move freely while appearing to be part of the celebration. Near the main platform, Marcus discovered something that made his blood run cold. Hidden among the decorative flower arrangements were small objects that definitely didn't belong. They were carefully concealed, but Marcus's trained eye caught the metallic glint and unusual wiring. His grandfather had taught him to notice details that others missed, and these details screamed danger. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't just a security concern or a potential pickpocketing operation. The coordination, the timing, the positioning, and now the concealed devices all pointed to something much more serious. The royal family was walking into a carefully planned trap, and Marcus was the only person who knew it was happening. He checked his radio. But calling in a bomb threat without absolute proof would create massive chaos and potentially ruin his career if he was wrong. But if he was right and did nothing, the consequences would be unthinkable. The weight of the decision pressed down on him as precious minutes ticked away. Marcus decided he needed more evidence before raising an alarm. He began systematically checking the other areas where the suspicious individuals had been positioned. At each location, he found similar concealed objects, always hidden, but placed for maximum impact. The pattern confirmed his worst fears, with 15 minutes until the royal appearance. Marcus made his way back toward his post, his mind racing through possible solutions. He couldn't handle this alone, but he also couldn't wait for others to understand the situation. The festival crowd was growing larger and more excited, pressing closer to the platform area. As he approached his assigned position, Marcus saw Captain Williams directing the final security preparations. The captain was experienced and respected, but he was focused on managing the known security protocols. Marcus realized he would have to find a way to communicate the threat without causing panic or seeming insubordinate. "Captain Williams," Marcus said, approaching carefully, "I need to report some unusual observations." The captain looked at him with mild annoyance. "Chen, we're 10 minutes from the royal appearance. Unless it's an emergency, it can wait." "Sir, I believe it might be exactly that." Something in Marcus's tone must have caught the captain's attention because Williams stopped what he was doing and focused on the younger guard. "Talk fast." Marcus quickly outlined his observations, describing the suspicious individuals, their coordination, and most importantly, the concealed objects he had discovered. As he spoke, he watched the captain's expression change from skepticism to concern to alarm. "Show me," Williams said immediately. They moved quickly but carefully through the crowd, Marcus leading the way to the nearest concealed device. When Captain Williams saw what Marcus had discovered, his face went pale, immediately activated. His emergency communication system, speaking in code words that Marcus recognized as the highest level threat alert. "All units, code Phoenix. Immediate lockdown protocol. Move the principals to safety now. But even as the emergency response began, Marcus realized they might be too late. The crowd was dense, the royal family was already moving toward the platform, and the suspicious individuals had noticed the sudden change in security activity. The situation was about to become very dangerous very quickly. One of the men Marcus had been watching suddenly looked directly at him, and their eyes met across the crowded courtyard. The man's expression changed instantly, and he began moving toward Marcus with clear, hostile intent. The careful surveillance phase was over, and the confrontation Marcus had been dreading was about to begin. Everything Marcus had learned, everything his grandfather had taught him, and everything he had quietly prepared for during 5 years of service was about to be tested in the most critical moments of his life. The moment their eyes met, Marcus knew the situation had escalated beyond observation and planning. The hostile individual was moving toward him with purpose, pushing through the crowd with a kind of aggressive determination that meant violence was imminent. Marcus had perhaps 30 seconds before the confrontation would begin, and the safety of hundreds of people depended on how he handled the next few minutes. Captain Williams was still coordinating the emergency response. Through his radio, directing units to secure the royal family and begin crowd evacuation, but the process was complex and would take time they might not have. Marcus could see other suspicious individuals throughout the crowd beginning to react to the security changes, their careful positioning shifting into more aggressive stances. Captain Marcus said urgently, "They know we've detected them. It's starting now." The man approaching Marcus was large and moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to intimidating others. He wore a festival t-shirt that poorly concealed what appeared to be body armor underneath, and his right hand kept moving toward his jacket pocket in a way that suggested a concealed weapon. The crowd around them was still oblivious, chatting and laughing while taking photos. Marcus made a quick decision that went against every protocol he had been taught. Instead of waiting for backup or trying to de-escalate, he moved directly toward the threat. His grandfather had always taught him that the element of surprise was often more valuable than superior numbers or weapons, especially when protecting innocent people. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said loudly as he approached, deliberately drawing attention from nearby festival goers. "You dropped something back there." The man stopped, confused by the unexpected approach. He had been prepared for Marcus to retreat or call for help, not to walk directly toward him with a friendly demeanor. The brief hesitation gave Marcus the advantage he needed. "I don't know what you're talking about," the man replied, his accent confirming Marcus's suspicion that this was an international operation.
Oh.
"I think you do," Marcus said, close enough now to act. "You dropped your cover." What happened next occurred so quickly that most witnesses later had difficulty describing the exact sequence of events. Marcus grabbed the man's wrist as he reached for his concealed weapon, using a joint lock technique that his grandfather had drilled into him thousands of times. The man's superior size meant nothing when Marcus controlled the leverage point. The hostile individual tried to break free and swing with his left hand, but Marcus had anticipated the move. He redirected the man's momentum, using traditional martial arts principles to turn the attacker's strength against him. The result was spectacular and immediate. The large man found himself on the ground with Marcus controlling both his arms. "Gun," Marcus shouted, loud enough for nearby security personnel to hear. "He has a weapon." The crowd immediately began to panic and scatter, which was exactly what Marcus had hoped for. The more space around the immediate threat, the better he could control the situation. Other guards began converging on his location, but Marcus could see additional threats moving through the dispersing crowd as backup arrived to secure his captured attacker. Marcus spotted movement near the main platform that made his heart race. One of the suspicious individuals was approaching the area where the royal family had been scheduled to appear, moving against the flow of the evacuating crowd. Even worse, Marcus could see what appeared to be a detonation device in the person's hand. "Platform threat," Marcus yelled, pointing toward the danger. "Bomb trigger," moving toward the platform. Captain Williams saw the threat immediately and began directing units toward the new danger. But the crowd evacuation was creating chaos that slowed their response. Marcus realized that the security team's protocols, designed for normal situations, were being overwhelmed by the complexity of this coordinated attack. Without waiting for orders, Marcus began running toward the platform threat. His years of physical training served him well as he navigated through the panicking crowd, jumping over barriers and ducking under decorative banners. The person with the detonation device saw him coming and began moving faster, clearly trying to reach a specific position before Marcus could intercept. The chase led Marcus through areas of the palace grounds he rarely accessed during normal duty, past the gift shop, around the ceremonial gardens, and toward the historic wing where tourists weren't usually allowed. Marcus began to understand that the attackers had planned multiple phases to their operation, with backup positions and escape routes carefully mapped out as he gained ground on his target. Marcus noticed something that changed his understanding of the entire situation. The person he was chasing wasn't just carrying a detonation device. They were wearing what appeared to be an explosive vest under their clothing. This wasn't just an attack on the royal family. It was a suicide mission designed to cause maximum casualties. The realization filled Marcus with a cold determination that surprised him. Every instinct told him to call for the bomb squad and maintain a safe distance, but there wasn't time for proper protocols. The attacker was approaching a position where detonation would affect not just the main platform, but also the areas where evacuating crowds were being directed. Marcus's grandfather had often spoken about moments when ordinary people had to make extraordinary choices. When the moment comes, the old man had said, "You will know what you must do. Trust your training, trust your heart, and act without hesitation." The moment had arrived, and Marcus Chen was about to discover exactly what he was truly capable of when everything he cared about was on the line. Marcus closed the distance between himself and the bomber with every ounce of speed and agility his training had developed. The person ahead of him was fast, but Marcus had spent years running these palace grounds during his off-duty hours, learning every path and shortcut. His dedication to physical fitness, which colleagues had often joked about as excessive, was now proving to be a crucial advantage. The bomber turned suddenly, realizing that Marcus was gaining ground despite their head start. For the first time, Marcus got a clear look at his target, a young woman, perhaps in her 20s, with the hollow expression of someone who had already accepted death. Her hand gripped the detonation device with white knuckles, and Marcus could see the trigger mechanism was a simple, dead man's switch. If she released pressure, or if someone tried to take it from her forcefully, the explosion would occur instantly. "Stay back," she shouted in accented English. "You cannot stop this." Marcus slowed his approach but continued moving forward, his mind racing through the training scenarios his grandfather had taught him, about disarming opponents without triggering their weapons. The key was to create confusion and redirect their focus while maintaining the exact right distance, close enough to act, but far enough to react if something went wrong. "You're right," Marcus said, stopping about 10 feet away. "I probably can't stop this, but I'm curious about something." The woman's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but Marcus had succeeded in engaging her attention. Every second of conversation was another second for evacuation procedures to move civilians further from the blast radius. "What could you possibly want to know?" she demanded. "How much did they pay you to throw your life away for their cause?" The question hit its mark. Marcus saw a flicker of uncertainty cross the woman's face, suggesting that money rather than ideology had motivated her participation. His grandfather had taught him that understanding an opponent's true motivation was often the key to finding their weakness. "You don't understand anything," she replied, but her voice lacked the conviction of a true believer. "I understand that whoever planned this operation is safely far away while you're here wearing a bomb vest," Marcus said. "I understand that they promised you something they never intended to deliver. And I understand that you're starting to realize you've been used." As they spoke, Marcus was carefully observing the woman's position and the trigger mechanism. The device appeared to be professionally constructed, but the dead man's switch was a standard design that his security training had covered extensively. The key would be timing and precision. He would need to simultaneously neutralize her ability to release the trigger while getting both of them as far as possible from the blast zone. Behind the bomber, Marcus could see Captain Williams and a bomb disposal team moving into position. but they were maintaining the standard safe distance that protocols required. Marcus realized that conventional approaches wouldn't work in this situation. The woman was positioned near a structural wall that would direct the blast force toward the main palace building, potentially causing catastrophic damage even if she was the only casualty. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, taking a small step closer. "That doesn't matter now," she replied, but something in her tone suggested she wanted to answer. "It matters to me," Marcus said. "In about 30 seconds, we're both going to make choices that will define who we really are. I'd like to know who I'm talking to." "Anya," she said quietly. "My name is Anya. Anya, I'm Marcus. And I want you to know that whatever brought you to this moment, you still have choices. The people who put that vest on you, they took away your options, but they couldn't take away your will." Marcus could see that his words were having an effect, but he also noticed Anya's grip on the trigger device was becoming less stable. Whether from emotional stress or physical fatigue, her hand was beginning to shake slightly. The dead man's switch required constant pressure, and any variation could prove catastrophic. "The money was supposed to help my family," Anya said, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "My brother needs surgery that we cannot afford. They said this was the only way. Well, and when you're gone, who's going to make sure your brother gets that surgery?" Marcus asked. "Do you really think the people who gave you this vest are going to honor their promises to a dead woman's family?" The question broke through Anya's remaining resolve. She began sobbing, but her grip on the trigger remained firm through muscle memory and training. Marcus realized that emotional breakthrough wasn't enough. He needed to act while she was distracted, but before she lost physical control of the device. Marcus made his move with the fluid precision of thousands of hours of martial arts training. He leaped forward at an angle that avoided directly approaching the trigger hand, instead targeting Anya's shoulder and upper arm. His goal was to immobilize her trigger arm while simultaneously carrying both of them away from the wall that would magnify the blast. The collision sent them both tumbling across the courtyard ground. With Marcus maintaining his grip on Anya's arm to prevent the trigger from being released, they rolled together for several feet before coming to rest near a decorative fountain that provided some protection from the blast direction.
"Oh,
"Don't let go," Marcus said urgently, still holding her trigger hand steady. "We're going to get through this together. But you have to keep holding that trigger until the bomb squad can disarm it." For a moment, Anya stared into Marcus's eyes, seeing something there that the people who had recruited her had lacked: genuine concern for her survival. The realization that someone was willing to risk their life to save hers rather than to use her broke down the last of her conditioning. "I don't want to die," she whispered. "Then don't," Marcus replied firmly. "Help me save both of us." The bomb disposal team approached with careful precision, their equipment and expertise focused on the delicate task of disarming a live explosive device. While keeping both Marcus and Anya alive, Marcus maintained his position, supporting Anya's trigger hand, knowing that any loss of pressure would detonate the vest and kill them both instantly. The next few minutes would require perfect coordination between people who had never worked together before. "I need you to keep her absolutely still," said the lead bomb technician, a steady-voiced woman named Sergeant Hayes. "We're going to approach from behind and work on the vest mechanism. Any sudden movement could trigger secondary switches we haven't identified yet." Marcus nodded, maintaining eye contact with Anya. "You're doing great," he told her quietly. "Just keep breathing and keep holding that trigger exactly where it is. These people know what they're doing." Anya's hand was trembling slightly from the sustained tension of gripping the trigger device, but her eyes showed newfound determination. "I can do this," she whispered. "I can hold on." While the bomb team worked with painstaking care behind them, Marcus found himself in the strangest conversation of his life. Here he was, lying on the palace courtyard grounds, holding hands with someone who had come to kill him and everyone he was sworn to protect. And somehow they were working together to prevent exactly that outcome. "Tell me about your brother," Marcus said, partly to keep Anya calm, and partly because he genuinely wanted to understand what had driven her to this desperate choice. "His name is Victor. He's only 12, but he has a heart condition that requires surgery we could never afford." The doctors say he has maybe 6 months without the operation. Anya's voice was steadier now, focused on something beyond the immediate danger. And the people who recruited you promised to pay for the surgery? They said my sacrifice would ensure my family was taken care of forever. I believed them because I wanted to believe them. When you have no other options, you believe anyone who offers hope. Marcus understood desperation, though his own had never led him to such extremes. Anya, when we get out of this, and we will get out of this, I'm going to help you find real solutions for your brother. There are medical charities, government programs, and people who genuinely want to help families in your situation. Really? The hope in her voice was heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. But first, we have to make sure you survive to take care of him. Sergeant Hayes and her team worked with extraordinary skill, identifying and neutralizing the secondary trigger, mechanisms that could have detonated the vest even if the main trigger was maintained. Marcus watched their faces, reading the tension and concentration as they dealt with what appeared to be a sophisticated device designed by professionals. Almost there, Hayes reported. I'm going to cut the final wire in 3.2.1. The small click of wire cutter seemed impossibly loud in the tense silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody was certain if the device was truly safe. Then Hayes spoke the words everyone was waiting to hear. Device is neutralized. You can release the trigger now. Anya's sob of relief echoed across the courtyard as she finally let go of the trigger she had been holding for what felt like hours, but had actually been less than 20 minutes. Marcus helped her sit up as the bomb squad carefully removed the now harmless vest from her body. Captain Williams approached as medical personnel checked both Marcus and Anya for injuries. Chen, I need a full report on how you identified this threat and managed the situation. Yes, sir, Marcus replied, but his attention was still focused on Anya, who was being treated by paramedics while also being prepared for arrest by other security personnel. Captain Marcus said, I gave this woman my word that we would help her find legitimate assistance for her family situation. I'd like to request that her cooperation in providing intelligence about the people who recruited her be taken into consideration. Williams studied Marcus with new respect. That's not typically how these situations are handled, Chen. Today wasn't typical in any way, sir. The captain nodded slowly. You're right about that. I'll speak with the appropriate authorities about your recommendation. As the immediate crisis concluded, Marcus began to realize that the day's events had changed far more than just the safety of the royal family. His quiet, unremarkable career as a royal guard was over. Word of his actions was already spreading through the security services, and he could see colleagues looking at him differently. Later that evening, after hours of debriefing sessions and medical examinations, Marcus found himself alone in his apartment, trying to process what had happened. His phone had been ringing constantly with calls from superiors, colleagues, and even media outlets who had somehow gotten his number. The most surprising call came from an unlisted number that turned out to be someone from the royal household itself. Princess Catherine, the youngest daughter of the royal family, wanted to personally thank him for preventing what could have been a devastating attack. Your actions today saved not just our family, but everyone who was attending the festival, she said. That kind of courage and quick thinking shouldn't go unrecognized. I was just doing my job. Your Highness, Marcus replied, still uncomfortable with the attention. Mr. Chen, you went far beyond your job. You saw what others missed. You acted when others hesitated, and you chose compassion even toward someone who came to harm us. Those aren't job requirements. Those are the qualities of an exceptional person. As Marcus ended the call, he realized that his grandfather had been right about moments that define character. But what he hadn't expected was how such moments could completely transform not just how others saw him, but how he saw himself. 3 months after the festival incident, Marcus Chen walked through the same palace courtyard where his life had changed forever, but everything was different now. He wore the distinctive uniform of the Royal Protection Service, having been promoted and transferred to the elite unit responsible for the personal security of the royal family. The quiet, overlooked guard who used to stand at ceremonial posts was now entrusted with the most critical security operations in the kingdom. The investigation following the attack had revealed the scope of the conspiracy that Marcus had single-handedly disrupted. The coordinated assault involved 12 operatives from an international criminal organization with enough explosive devices to cause catastrophic damage to the palace and surrounding areas. Intelligence services estimated that Marcus's early detection had prevented hundreds of casualties and potentially changed the course of national security. But for Marcus, the most meaningful outcome had nothing to do with recognition or career advancement. True to his word, he had worked with medical charities and government assistance programs to arrange the surgery that Anya's brother Victor desperately needed. The 12-year-old boy was recovering well, and Anya herself was participating in a witness protection program, providing intelligence about the criminal network that had recruited her. The operation was successful. Anya had told Marcus during one of their supervised meetings, "Victor's doctors say he'll be able to live a completely normal life now. I can never thank you enough for keeping your promise." "You kept your promise too," Marcus had replied. "You chose to trust me instead of the people who wanted to use you. That took more courage than anything I did." The relationship between Marcus and Anya had evolved into something neither of them had expected. What began as a life-or-death negotiation had become a genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared experience. Under different circumstances, they might never have met, but the intensity of the encounter had created a bond that transcended their original roles as guard and threat. Marcus's new position brought responsibilities he had never imagined. When he first joined the Royal Guard, he now participated in high-level security briefings, traveled with the royal family on official visits, and served as a liaison with international protection services. His insights about threat assessment and crowd analysis had become valued contributions to the overall security strategy. The physical confrontation that had launched everything remained a source of amazement to his colleagues. Security footage of Marcus's takedown of the first attacker had become legendary within law enforcement circles. But Marcus himself rarely discussed the specifics. His grandfather had taught him that true martial arts mastery was about preventing violence, not celebrating it. "You have found your true path," his grandfather told him during a visit. "For years, I watched you practice techniques and wondered when you would need them. I never imagined it would be to save so many lives while also saving the soul of someone who came as an enemy." The wisdom in those words resonated with Marcus as he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. He had spent 5 years believing he was unremarkable, overlooked, and destined for routine assignments. One morning had revealed capabilities he didn't know he possessed and opened doors to opportunities he had never considered. Princess Catherine had become something of a mentor to Marcus, recognizing in him the kind of thoughtful, principled person she wanted involved in royal security. Their conversations during official events had evolved from formal gratitude to genuine discussions about service, responsibility, in the unexpected ways that ordinary moments can become extraordinary. "She taught our entire security apparatus an important lesson," she had told him recently. "The most dangerous threats aren't always the ones that announce themselves loudly. Sometimes they're the quiet ones that require quiet observers to detect them." Marcus's reputation within the security community had opened doors to training opportunities and consulting roles that would have been unimaginable. In his previous position, intelligence agencies wanted to understand his methods for threat detection, and security training programs quested his insights about maintaining awareness while appearing relaxed. But perhaps the most significant change was within Marcus himself. The confidence he had gained from successfully handling an extraordinary crisis had transformed his daily approach to challenges both large and small. He no longer saw himself as someone who waited for others to take action. Instead, he had become someone who trusted his instincts and acted decisively when situations required it. As Marcus concluded his patrol of the palace grounds on this peaceful afternoon, he reflected on how a single moment of violence had ultimately led to healing for everyone involved. Anya had found legitimate help for her family and a chance to rebuild her life. The royal family had gained enhanced security and a deeper understanding of the complex motivations that drove people to desperate actions. And Marcus had discovered that being unremarkable was often the perfect preparation for doing remarkable things when they were truly needed. The kick to his face that morning, 3 months ago, had hurt for days. But it had also awakened something in Marcus that had been quietly waiting for the right moment to emerge. His grandfather had been right about preparation, training, and character, but most importantly, he had been right about the moment when everything changes in an instant. Marcus Chen was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that sometimes the most important battles are won not by the strongest or the loudest, but by those who see clearly and act with both courage and compassion.